Hey, what's up everyone? It's Press Reset again. I got a couple more tips and tricks for beginner sculptors here. The first thing I want to explain to you is the thermometer and looseness. Both very important aspects of sculpting. Your thermometer in particular. If you're sculpting for visual purposes, if you're just trying to make a scene that you want to show people, your thermometer is not going to be as big of a deal as if you're trying to sculpt to make gameplay assets for yourself to use or for others to use. But in both cases, knowing your thermometer can only be a good thing. So first I'll show you how you turn your thermometer on. You go to your show hide menu here, and you find this little speedometer symbol, and you click it, and it will turn on your thermometer, and that will show you your gameplay, which is your purple, your graphics, which is your yellow, and your audio, which is your blue. Right now, with these three shapes, I am up to 10% of my graphics allotment, and I will explain why. So this first shape here on your left is obviously a cube. It is the default cube at default looseness. And if I was to delete this, you'll see it doesn't really have an effect on your graphics. It's not taking up that much of the graphics. Bring it back. Now this one looks pretty much the same. It's just a cube. But if I was to delete this one, minus 10%. That cube right there is taking up 10% of my graphics. And the reason is because this, as we zoom closer, is at the highest resolution. It is at the lowest looseness. Also, this right here, although it looks like a sphere, is also a cube, but it is at its highest looseness. And this, let me turn off the grid. This, you delete it, barely does anything. So, default looseness, max looseness, or excuse me, default looseness, lowest looseness, highest looseness. The interesting thing is, even though deleting this gets rid of 10%, you just delete one, and it gets rid of 10%, minus 10%, you could clone this thing forever. And I'm sure forever isn't accurate, but a lot. And never increase your graphics thermometer. So let me show you how you adjust your looseness. So if we were to come in here into this sculpt, right now we are sculpting again in lowest looseness, which is max resolution. If we did not want to do that anymore, what you would do is hold down X on your left wand. You can adjust your looseness. You can go 0 uniformity, which is default, back to negative 33, which is your max resolution, and to 100% uniform, which is your lowest looseness, lowest thermometer usage. And you can sculpt around and have fun doing it. Another interesting thing about looseness is varying looseness. Now there's two ways you can access your varying looseness. If you hold down, hold on, let me get a shape here. If you hold down X while on your left wand without twisting and press triangle, you can switch your looseness mode. And when you switch your looseness mode, what this turns into is, it's called varying looseness. And as you can see, it holds its shape. It holds its shape, and it can create these cool textures here. As you can see, you get these really interesting textures. If you were to cut into them, you see how the outside is much looser than the inside. Allows you to create, again, some interesting textures. The second way that you can access the varying looseness is in the the shape editor menu, which is triangle on the left stick and square. Inside this menu, triangle on the left stick, square on the right. And in this menu, you can actually adjust the shape in this way and kind of build it out before you stamp it. And you're given the option down here. You can stamp it where it is, or you can leave the shape editor and have it attached to your imp. And you can place it wherever you like. Some of the other options in this menu are the blend amount, looseness amount right here. And right here, you can do varying looseness. You can turn it on and off. Another cool thing that you can do in this menu is sections. Not all shapes have these options, but you can break it into different sections, and you can increase the hole. So if you turn the sections on, this has now been hollowed out. It's a hollowed out sphere. In here, you can also, this is really important, you can also select a new grip. So if you click here where it says grip, you can select one of these circles. And I find the center one helps me a lot. And then when you leave, instead of holding it on the edge, you're holding it by whatever grip you selected in there. So if you're having trouble placing things, particularly on the grid, switching your grip can help you a lot. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics on looseness. Just remember that your looseness affects your thermometer, and it also affects visuals. Another cool thing you can do with looseness is create grass and stuff like that. I'll show you real quick. Zoom in on this one, and say we go into our modes. We go into style mode, and we can apply a fleck. So we can come in here and pick the streaky fleck. It's a very simple way to make grass. So you pick streaky, and you paint this bad boy. Can increase the rate. Doesn't look like much is happening, but then if we go in here, back into our tools, and increase the looseness, that's when the flecks become much more apparent. Okay, so because we increase the looseness, the flecks start to appear, and we can then comb. So we go into the menu, the tools menu of the style mode, and then we can comb these around. And this is how you would create grass. And obviously you could use this for hair, fur, anything that you can imagine. It's just how you can manipulate these different things. Yeah, so I think that about covers what I wanted to get into with looseness. The next thing I wanted to show people is Smart Clone, because Smart Clone is pretty cool, but I only find it useful if you know about it in advance and you plan for it. So for Smart Clone, real quick, I'm going to go back to my Mjolnir sculpt, because I actually utilized it in here. So let's go into edit, and I'll show you. Each one of these little notches started off as a rectangle. And instead of, you know what? I'll just show you the process. It'll be easier. Sorry. I jump around a lot. Forgive me. So we're going to start a new sculpt. I think it'll be easier. So let's start with a square. All right. We're going to create the grid. Grid snap. And let's get this guy snapped to the grid. Get rid of that one. Whoops. Stamp tool. Okay. So now we have one square. If you come up here to the tools, I believe it's under. Yep. And you find the little sheep. You click it, and then you go to, not Smart Clone, I'm sorry, Live Clone. Smart Clone would also be an apt name. So you create your shape and you Smart Clone it. So let's make a bunch of clones. Cool, right? So you got some clones. Then you decide, you know what? I don't really like this square. Change it. So you come in here and you make an adjustment. When you Smart Clone an object, or Live Clone, I'm always going to call it Smart Clone, every object that was cloned from it gets altered. So if you plan in advance, if you know that you're going to need a lot of the same item, a lot of the same sculpts, but perhaps you haven't yet decided or, you know, settled on what that sculpt is going to be, make live clones. And then whenever you adjust one of them, it'll adjust all of them. Live clones are awesome. So last thing that I wanted to show real quick was just a simple animation, because the animation, while it kind of deviates from the sculpting advice, the animation in Dreams is just so cool that I wanted to demystify it a little bit for those of you who may not know just how simple it is first and how deep it can be. So here is a sphere. Not a perfect sphere, but a sphere. To create animation, a very simple one at first, literally all you have to do is come in here to this animate button and action recorder. You're going to stamp and you're going to grab and you're going to move around. Grab and move around. And now press play. And it does what you did. Obviously, that's a very simple animation. And the action recorder is very powerful, but keyframes are even more powerful. And I will give you an example of those. So with a keyframe, you can set up a timeline. And sorry, you pick the timeline right here from the same menu. And let me stop the timer here. And you can open the timeline. I'm going to move this back here. So with a keyframe, these things I think are probably the most powerful tool in Dreams. You can animate anything with a keyframe, not just a sculpt, but you can animate logic. You can turn switches on and off in your logic using a keyframe. So if you get comfortable using these keyframes, you're going to open up a whole other world of possibilities. But excuse me, for the sake of this, for keyframe, all we're going to do is place one down, and it's recording. See how it says stop recording? Not everything I do, it's not going to really do anything until I make an adjustment. So if I move this guy over here and I hit stop recording, press play, and then I'm going to need it. Sorry, I need a second keyframe. So we're going to start there, and we're going to put another keyframe down. And then we're recording on that second keyframe. So the first keyframe was moving him over here, and all that keyframe did was record its position here. So if I then move him up there, you'll notice it gets this little outline around it, and then I stop recording. So if you come up to the keyframe, hold triangle and press X to change the blend mode between keyframes. And there's plenty of different blend modes for you to choose from. When you press play, watch what happens. It slowly moves from the first keyframe once it hits this again. Let me put this on loop for you. And loop. We're going to restart and press play. it moves from the first keyframe's position to the last keyframes, or to the second keyframe's position. And it does it going along this timeline. So it's starting off slower and it's speeding up. So that's some simple animation. You can do a lot with those two tools. So that's all I'm going to go over for this video. But if you have anything that you would like me to explain in a future video, just drop a comment. I'm more than willing to help out. And again, thanks for watching.